Breaking down the numbers, the Eurozone's second biggest economy has seen inflation rise at its fastest rate in more than a decade. France says the cost of living is up 3.4%. That's the biggest year-on-year increase since 2008. Christopher Dembik is head of macro analysis at Saxo Bank, and I asked him what we should make of these figures.
Well, I think this is quite clear that inflation will remain in place for much longer than most of the policymakers and central bankers expect. I mean, if we look at the latest data of inflation for November in the Eurozone, or especially in Italy, in Spain, in Portugal, all of them are increasing quite a lot. And we see that this is not transitory, or at least we call it transitory for longer. We see we have a bunch of data that explain us, that let us believe that inflation will be still a key issue going into next year. We have bottlenecks, we have energy crisis, we start to see workers asking for higher salaries in some countries, and even in countries where you have high unemployment. So I think, as a matter of fact, we need to understand very well that inflation will not disappear from one day to another. And when the European Central Bank is telling us that inflation will start to decrease from early next year, I think they are overly optimistic, and my belief is that inflation will keep increasing, especially due to bottlenecks, due to the pandemic, but also due to the fact that the European Union is facing kind of a harsh energy crisis currently, and it won't disappear in January or February. It might be worse, actually.
Oh, my goodness, that's such a gloomy outlook for what's to come. Look, exploding energy prices, euro area inflation soaring. What's the picture like in France?
Well, the situation in France is, I would say, under control. Inflation, comparatively, is less high than in most of the Eurozone countries. We see also that unemployment trend is getting down, so this is quite positive, because we all know that usually in France, higher unemployment was one of the key issues. And of course, I would say this is more or less the same situation in most of the European countries. We have seen that GDP activity was mostly driven by consumption. As a matter of fact, if I look only at economic situation, I would say that France has never been in such a good shape over the past, 5 or 7 years. The last time that France was such in a good shape was probably actually even before the global financial crisis.
So you're saying that France is in pretty good shape in terms of the economy. The issue perhaps then is the mood. I mean, what impact might the new variant have on consumer confidence?
Well, it will, of course, depend on the evolution of the pandemic. The positive factor in France is that the vaccination rate is quite high. But on top of that, we see that all the measures that has been taken by the government since March 2020 managed to at least save the purchasing power of most of the households. And for some of them, even purchasing power has increased.
Well, let's talk about the balance of economic power in the EU. And with the new France-Italy deal, a new German chancellor, key general elections in 2022, what is changing in terms of economic growth?
Germany is facing plenty of structural challenges. And as a matter of fact, we will have, of course, the French election going into 2022. My bet is that Emmanuel Macron will be re-elected, and he might count on the Italian Prime Minister Draghi in this prospect. I think that Macron could also try, of course, to work with Germany, but also work much closer with other European countries, especially Italy, in order to move forward in terms of European economic integration.